Let me begin by acknowledging the presence of our distinguished Indonesian friends, as well as our colleagues, partners, and friends from around the world. I especially extend congratulations to Indonesia and the Directorate General of Correction for hosting this Congress. Indonesia's continuous effort to balance rehabilitations with accountability is to be acknowledged and commended. Today, I would like to share a perspective on how we can move towards a more connected, effective, and human correctional system. One does not end at incarceration, but continues as a pathway towards reintegration in safer society. Before we talk about rehabilitation and reintegration, we must begin with a more fundamental question. How does someone enter a correctional system in the first place? Every individual enters through a legal process, and the equality of the process matters deeply. Justice must be granted in three essential principles. One is fairness, where legal process must be unbiased and consistent, ensuring legal certainty for all. Secondly is equality. All individuals must be treated equally before the law, regardless of their background and social status. And third, access. Individuals should be able to understand the law and have meaningful access to legal institutions, including courts and tribunals, as well as adequate legal assistance to uphold their rights. These principles create whether individuals trust the system, whether communities feel protected, and whether justice is perceived as fair. When systems are grounded in fairness and humanity, they do not only respond to crime, they help prevent it. And this is important because what happened at the beginning of the system shapes everything that follows. Justice is shaped long before incarceration, starting at the moment of arrest. The first interaction with the system forms trust, legitimacy, and outcomes. When this process is fair, transparent, and accountable, it builds confidence. But when it is not, the consequences can be significant. Wrongful incorporations, increased pressure on reintegration system, and overcrowding. Globally, we can highlight these examples, although they are not exhaustive. First, the UK emphasized procedural safeguards to ensure transparency and protect suspect rights. Second, Norway embeds dignity in enforcement, reflecting a broader rehabilitative philosophy that aligns with their human correctional system. And third, New Zealand integrates community-based policing to build trust by ensuring culturally sensitive approach. So, we must ask, if the beginning is not fair, how can we outcome be just? This is why justice must be understood as a continuum, not a single moment. Let us now look at the current reality. The unfortunately is common in too many countries around the world, in Indonesia as well. Correctional facilities are currently operating at approximately 186% of capacity. In this context, this level of overcrowding creates systemic pressure. An overcrowded correction system faces several challenges including disease transmissions, unsafe conditions for both inmates and staff, reduced access to rehabilitation due to limited space for programs. These conditions contribute to recidivism, strained resources, and violate basic human dignity. As a result, many individuals may complete their sentence, yet still live without the necessary skills, access to economic opportunities, or the social support needed to reintegrate effectively. We are encouraged by Indonesia efforts to address these challenges, and with its focus on restorative justice, this brings us to a critical point. Reintegration is not an automatic. It must be intentionally enabled. And this is where the focus needs to be shifted. Not only managing reintegrations, but on preparing individuals for what comes after. Ensuring that the transition back into society is supported, structured, and sustainable. When the individual leaves correctional facilities, the transition into community supervision in Indonesia, we can see that the numbers of individuals under probation and paroled has been steadily increasing over the past 3 years from around 122,000 in 2024 to more than 135,000 so far in 2026. This reflects both progress towards community-based supervision and a growing demand for effective reintegration system. As systems evolve, key areas remain to be strengthened: more individual support, stronger links to real economic opportunity, better cross-sector coordination, and continuity before and after release. Some priority actions are needed and include expanding capacity for individual supervisions, strengthening the capacity of probation and parole officers, ensuring continuity of skills and post-release support, and developing pathways to employment for those under supervision. Without adequate support, the potential of community supervision to support meaningful reintegration may not be fully realized. Reintegration does not end at release. In many ways, that is where the real work begins. Second Chance Foundation partnership with the Directorate General of Corrections reflect this shared commitment to reintegration through our various programs. Let me highlight a few areas of partnership where our collaboration with DGC has had very good outcomes. Together, we are building systems that are not only smarter and more compassionate, but truly work for everyone: officer, paroles, and probationary. In 2020, our partnership established empathic production and training center construction for women at Semarang Correctional Facility. We also produced Second Chance Stars, a competition for singing, dancing, and stand-up comedy, similar to America Got Talent that some of you may be familiar with. Participants represent correctional facilities from across Indonesia. Together with DGC, we also contribute to the Pope Apostolic Journey in Indonesia back in 2024. Recently, we collaborate with Rafael Rowe Foundation on a welding training and bunk bed construction program. Not only this program improve the living condition for prisoners, but it is also provided with remarkable skills in welding and metal construction. Since our establishment, we have reached 167 correctional facilities and engaged more than 3,900 individuals through 97 programs. These numbers are important, but what we have learned is this scaling access alone is not enough. Why truly determines good outcomes is relevance and continuity. Without this, impacts remain limited. Behind every number is a person. For example, Teddy, who discovered photography during incarceration and today work professionally in the field, or Kasih, who started with batik training and now runs her own business while also teaching others. These stories are not exceptions. They illustrate something important. Reintegration is not theoretical, it is life. What changes is not only skills, but also identity and the ability to participate economically and socially and live in dignity following incarceration. From these examples, we have learned that reintegration requires three key elements. First, alignment with labor market realities. Skill must be relevant beyond the correctional environment. Second, cross-sector collaboration. Reintegration cannot be handled by one institution alone. And third, individuals' readiness, confidence, build agency capacity, and mindset are equally important as the technical skill they gain. Because ultimately, reintegration is not a moment, it is a system. This brings us to a broader perspective. When we talk about getting smart on justice, we mean moving forward outdated punitive models. We must embrace evidence, data, compassion, and human dignity. This means tailoring intervention through risk-need responsivity models, expanding alternatives to incarceration such as probation and parole, and using technology wisely, not as a barrier, but as a bridge to reintegration. Importantly, meaningful investment from government and the private sectors to support rehabilitation and reintegration. Building on this idea of getting smart on justice, we must also recognize that smart justice cannot stand alone without smart and aligned policy. Because even the most well-designed rehabilitation program will struggle to succeed if they are not supported by a broader system that is consistent, fair, and grounded in human rights. Rehabilitation efforts are most effective when they are supported by regulation that uphold human rights, equal legal standing for all individuals, and clear, consistent legal frameworks. Individuals in correctional system are no longer seen only as a subject of punishment, but as an individual with the potential to contribute when they return to the society. And the system itself begins to shift from being a burden to becoming an opportunity. Expanding on the example we referenced earlier, we can see how this alignment strengthens outcomes. In Norway, for example, the system emphasized restorative justice and normalization, ensuring that life inside reflects life outside as much as possible. In Singapore, the Yellow Ribbon programs create structured pathway from incarceration to employment and social reintegration. And across several European countries, Policies such as grace periods and record-sensitive employment help reduce long-term stigma and improve access to work. In this context, Indonesia is also in a strong and strategic position as a country that plays an active role in global human rights discussion. There is an opportunity for Indonesia to promote strengthening of the alignment between justice, humanity, and rehabilitation. Because when the policy, human rights, and rehabilitation are aligned, we do not only improve system, but we improve lives. And this alignment is what allows justice to move from process of control to a system that truly enables transformations. Smart justice requires smart policy. Government must invest in research and evaluation to understand what truly works. Probation and parole officers need training in motivational interviewing, trauma-informed care, and cultural competence. And we must build partnership with the private sector and community groups to provide housing, employment, and education. Justice is not only accountability, it is also about opportunity. Friends, yes, we must hold offenders accountable when they break laws, but at the same time, we have to provide opportunities for their rehabilitation and reintegration. Following the importance of smart policy, the next question is, how do we operationalize this in practice? Because policy alone is not enough. It must be translated into system, standards, and day-to-day implementation. First, through training and standards, capacity needs to be strengthened with practical, scenario-based approaches, such as Norway's model of the escalation, dialogue, and respect for human rights. Second, documentation and monitoring. Standardized records of legal grounds and evidence ensure consistency and accountability. While digital tools such as body-worn camera and logs enhance transparency and trust. Third, oversight and complaints mechanism. Independent review structures are essential to ensure accountability and maintain public confidence. Fourth, community-centered approach. These include community policing models that involve local stakeholders, as well as alternatives to formal prosecution. For minor offenders, aligned with restorative justice and reducing unnecessary system entry. And finally, integration with probation and parole system, early stage information, including form arrest, should inform supervision and reintegration strategies. When these elements are embedded, the impact is significant, reducing wrongful incarceration, strengthening public trust, and creating more connected system, a continuum of justice from arrest through probation and parole and into reintegration. Now let us turn to healing hearts. Many individuals under supervision carry deep histories of trauma, poverty, and marginalization. If we ignore that, we miss the chance to change the life. Healing hearts means integrating mental health and substance use treatment into probation and parole system, and recognizing that relapse is a part of recovery. It means supporting families Because when we help children and partners, we break cycles of harm. And it means creating peer mentorship program. When those who had walked the path of reintegration can guide others, healing is not a soft deal. It is a hard necessity. Parole officers should be trained in compassionate supervision. Finally, we come to safer society. Too often, safety is equated with exclusion, locking people away behind high walls. But true safety comes from inclusion when individuals are given second chance. Recidivism decreases, families grow stronger, and communities become healthier. Community corrections must be recognized as a pillar of public safety. That means rewarding progress, not just punishing setbacks, investing in community-based services, and collaborating across justice, health, housing, and education sectors. I want to emphasize this point. Safety is not built by walls. It is built by bridge of opportunity, of compassion, and of inclusion. This is the vision we must carry forward. Friends, colleagues, and partners, our task is clear. We must commit to a vision of justice that is smart, compassionate, and effective. By getting smart on justice, healing hearts, and building safer societies, we can transform community correction into a system that not only supervises but truly supports. As we reflect on these shared visions, we also remind of an important reality in Indonesia. The correctional system continues to evolve with a growing numbers of individuals transitioning into the community, highlighting the increasing importance of effective reintegration support. In this context, ensuring that individuals can access meaningful opportunities after release become more essential. This is where Second Chance Foundation contributes. We are an independent nonprofit organization in Indonesia, focused to support both adult juvenile offenders through education, skill developments, and reintegration program. Our work focuses on strengthening skills, supporting reintegration with dignity, and fostering a more inclusive public perceptions. More importantly, we aim to connect systems, linking what happens inside correctional facilities with real opportunity beyond release. Because the second chance is not just about being released, it is about having a real opportunity to move forward. At Second Chance Foundation, we believe that meaningful reintegration happens when systems are truly connected, when skills lead to real opportunities and individuals are supported toward a more sustainable future. We invite you to be part of this shared effort to help build pathways that connect people to opportunities, stability, and dignity. Because a smarter correctional system is not only more effective, it is more connected, more inclusive, and more humane. And when reintegration is supported in this way, a second chance becomes a real opportunity. Yet, this is not something that one organization can be done. It requires all of us to take part in this building a system that is not only effective, but also fair and human. Because in the end, this is not only about system. It is about people. It is about dignity. And it is about the kind of society we choose to build. So, let me leave you with this question. If not us, then who? If not now, then when? Let us leave this Congress with renewed determination to make second chance not only exception, but the norm. Because when justice is marked, when hearts are healed, societies are safer, and everyone wins. Thank you.